I'm Joe Polish.
And this is Dan Sullivan.
Welcome to another episode of 10X Talk. And we're going to carry on a conversation we had on our last episode. If you haven't heard that one, go listen to it. And even if you haven't, you can listen to this one and then go back to that one. And Dan, we were talking on the last episode about the 50-person progression. And you went through building your 10X future through your 10X relationships. And you went through criteria of 6 different things. And can you talk about that? And then we'll go into another part of it. And then I'll bring up something I said we would talk about, which is how does Dan Sullivan get out of relationships that he's not aligned with?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I would liken, if I could give an image to everybody who's listening, just think of a town or a city. Let's talk about a big city, and there's a really good section of the town, and there's a really bad section of the town, and a lot of people have had that experience in their travels. So the bad part of the city, everybody believes that things are getting worse, which I call scarcity. So they believe that there's only so much to go around, and it's being unfairly distributed, so some people have it all and they don't. Not only that, but the resources of the planet are being depleted. And it's, again, by people who, they're wealthy, powerful people, and that it's basically unfair. So their basic attitude toward life is that it's unfair, and they're on the wrong end of that. Then as far as their behavior on a daily basis, they exhibit a lot of envy, they exhibit a lot of guilt, and they're very, very angry all the time. And oftentimes they're extremely well educated. I find the greatest negativity and the greatest belief in scarcity is actually among the most highly educated individuals, because they go to college, they go to school, and their teachers teach them this, and they go to college, and their college teachers teach this. So everybody really reinforces everybody else's scarcity minded. So that's the bad section of town. And the right section of town is really where people believe that because of technology, everything in the world has a real great chance of getting better in almost every conceivable part of life. There's a tremendous increase in human ingenuity for coming up with new solutions and new products, new services, new capabilities that make life easier for everybody. And there's a constant expansion for opportunity, regardless of where you started in life. It doesn't matter where you start, whether you're wealthy or poor, or what your gender is, what your racial background is, doesn't really matter. So that opportunity you can take advantage of, but the one pass card that gets you, let's say there's a fence between these two parts of the city, and there's a gate where there's a pass card, and you got to stick it in. The pass card that gets you into the really good section is gratitude. You have to start basically every day being grateful for what you already have, and just think the world is just amazing. It's just wonderful. And if you do that, you're going to see all sorts of ways of being creative. Ingenuity is having an idea. Creativity is being able to execute the idea and do it within an expanding network of cooperation with other people. So what I'm saying, Joe, is if you had a choice of where you wanted to live in the city, anybody who's an entrepreneur wants to live on the right side of the fence, because everything you produce over there, everything you do over there is greeted with positive, abundance-minded attitudes. So there's the abundance district, and then there's the scarcity district. First of all, who you create your future with, and like if the next 50 people, you could choose where you wanted them living, you'd want to have them all come out of the abundance part of the city. You wouldn't want to hang around in the scarcity neighborhoods because everybody's unhappy. They're all complaining. They're all criticizing. And you wouldn't want to be there because it uses up all your energy just being around them. Now, once you're over in the abundance side, there's even greater criteria about who would be the best 50 people to surround yourself with in the future. And that's really the subject. And the concept that leads us off, I call the double multiplier.
So what do you mean by double multiplier?
Well, you have to look at things, and here again, I'm talking just about entrepreneurs. You have to look at it from, in the terms of your entrepreneurial success, there's 2 universes that you have to think about. One of them is a personal universe, and that's just what do you do And on the other hand, there's a company universe, and the company is the support system that you've grown around you, and it's your vehicle for becoming more and more successful as an entrepreneur. And so each of them deserves equal weight. And on the personal side, because of the way that you've grown as an entrepreneur, you do a lot of activities which may have made sense for some reason in the past, but a lot of those activities really don't make any sense for you to go forward with. They aren't going to lead to any growth. They're not going to lead to any sense of satisfaction. But we just collect them. It's like, it's like buying things over 20 years but never throwing anything out. That, after a while, you're not very, very happy with the environment that you're operating in. Periodically, you just have to clean things out. You have to prune things and everything like that. And what I noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs, they just collect all sorts of activities. And at a certain point, their whole time system is used up with activities, only a few of which they really go forward activities. In other words, if they could leave behind everything that doesn't make sense anymore, I go forward. And I call that unique ability. So that's the one side. So if you think of a big circle of everything the person is doing, the entrepreneur, you, me, and millions of other people, then there's a smaller circle inside. And only in the smaller circle, which is unique ability, are those the things that you're doing right now that you should continue doing in the future. Everything else should be left behind.
Do you ever think we're going to live in a world there is a very large percentage of people operating in their unique ability, or do you think there's always going to be continual complexity and that sort of stuff?
I think things are pretty constant from century to century, generation to generation. I'm a great believer in Pareto's law, which says that in any situation, 20% of the effort produces 80% of the results, and in any situation, 20% of the people produce 80% of the results. And there's so much proof that that's just constant. It just never varies off that 20%. So probably in the city analogy that the 80% are mainly in the bad section of town and the 20% are in the good section of town. I can have a strategic coach workshop. You can have a 25K session. I can guarantee you, if you have 100 people in the room, 20 of them are producing 80% of the results in that room.
Right, right. And me and Dean Jackson recently did an interview with Perry Marshall, who wrote a book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of like you break down with the 80% approach and the 80% solution, that even after you then get the 20% producing 80% of the results, then you can then go back to that 20% and there's another 80/20, and then you can go there and there's another 80/20. Yeah. And it keeps going deeper and deeper. It is an amazing constant, like you're saying, and you can apply it to pretty much almost everything.
Yeah, and I think it's true in every area of life. It's true in nature that out of all the animals in the jungle, 20% of them are dominant in their particular niche. It just seems to be a universal rule. And I think that all really bad politics is an attempt to say, no, we're going to have everybody operating on the same level. Everything we dislike about politics is the attempt by politicians and bureaucrats to not recognize the 80/20 rule. That's how society is put together.
And the attempt to try to equalize things that make no sense to equalize, because if you ever try to equalize 80/20 and bring everybody to like whatever you would want to phrase it, fairness, or take from the successful to give to the unsuccessful or whatever, where, it's positioned like you're actually the successful or the uncaring ones and they're hoarding all of the money versus looking at it like, well, the ones that are producing the results does not automatically, it's immoral to have someone that is producing results to have to give some of the benefits of those results to people that haven't produced the results unless they just willingly want to do it. And most of the people that I know that produce results are caring, compassionate, empathetic, contributing member of society and a builder of community and a caretaker of many, not because they're forced to be, but that's just because who they are. I see that surrounding me with the type of entrepreneurs and value creators that I hang out with, and you see the same. So I think you are absolutely right. You made this comment to me once, which I completely agree with, that you said there's, two industries that really misuse talent, although, of course, we know there's many industries that misuse talent and many people that misuse talent. But you said, politics and nonprofits.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, we'll get off on a 6-hour discussion here. But yeah, I just think because they're trying to change the 80-20 rule, and it just uses up enormous amounts of tax money, and and I mean, it just wastes an enormous amount of money that could be better used and skills that could be better used. So one part of my equation then is this unique ability thing. So I have 5 criteria that I look at a person, and I'll use you as the example, Joe, because, my feeling is that you're the person in the world outside of Strategic Coach that I have the best and most cooperative and most creative relationship with. And I say the first criteria is, looking at it from my standpoint, if I look at Joe multiplies my unique ability, and our relationship multiplies your relationship. So we have this relationship where the more we hang out with each other and the more things we do together, the more we multiply each other's best unique ability. So that would be my first criteria. And therefore, if I'm looking for someone in the future who I would first of all meet as a stranger, then this would be the thing. Is this possible? I know what it looks like because I already have Joe. And so now that's the model I use for looking for the other ones.
Can I say something to that also? I mean, let's just say in my 25K group, it's the same sort of thing. We look at Genius Network and say, who is the ideal model of just a fantastic person in 25K, a fantastic relationship? And that would be you. I mean, you're number one on that list. And so it's great because we can always use that as a standard to compare. It helps with creating and maintaining a criteria because I want as many people that have as many of the attributes as Dan Sullivan in my world, because my world just gets exponentially better every day the more I do that. So yeah, it completely makes sense.
Yeah, and that leads directly to my second criteria under unique ability, is that by knowing you and working with you, my unique ability teamwork in the world just got better because of your basic ability to reach out and meet entirely new people and discover entirely new people. That's an ability that I probably have to some degree, but you have it at 100%. So I don't have to try to do that. I don't have to try to get better, but you're just automatically going to create an enormous number of new relationships for me that you've kind of screened for me. So you've done all the work. And then one of the impacts that we have on your organization is that they get to see how our organization runs. So you don't have to be training them. We actually train your organization. So you got this whole training organization that just comes with a relationship.
Right. Let me say something about that too, because hopefully it'll communicate this the way that I interpret it from a different vantage point, because I'm actually in Strategic Coach. I'm very active. I send my team members to the Strategic Coach team programs and things like that. Is I just think it's a great operating system for anyone. And there are a lot of people, and it's people that are in the scarcity mindset where they're always questioning, well, what's the cost of training people? Well, what's the cost of untrained people? I mean, if you're going to have them around there, so whenever you can see models of things that just work well, why would you not want to dive into that? Yeah. Why would you not want to learn from it?
Yeah, and then the other thing is the connecting of yourself with other unique ability talents. It's more than teamwork. I'm working with Dean Jackson now because you introduced him. I'm working with Peter Diamandis because you introduced me to him. I'm working with Jeff Walker now because you introduced him. So every year I'm getting new people coming into my life who, by the way, are all on my 50-person top 50 list that I would really like to surround myself as I go forward. And Nick Nanton's another one. We have all these really, really fascinating individuals with unique talents, and I get access to them, and then we're bringing all sorts of interesting people into 25K, or you meet them at Strategic Coach, and these are new talents for you. So, and this just happens automatically. It's not like we put quotas on it or we put goals. That all the first three that I'm talking about, the enhancement of each other's unique abilities, the expansion of our unique ability teamwork, and the introduction to new talents, this just happens automatically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's the big thing about it. And the other thing is that you don't worry about the score. The score evens out continually over time. I don't keep a record, is Joe a little bit ahead of me or anything like that? It's just your intention is to always do as much as possible in these areas. And then the fourth one is that you promote me to your network. I mean, you always make me a featured speaker and give me more time than almost anyone else. It's just like it's made for me. I never went to any conferences or trade shows in my life that can hold a candle to the benefit that I get just by being put in the spotlight at Genius Network.
Yeah, thank you. Let me make a real quick point about that, too, because I see this happening all the time. I mean, I'm in the world of all the buzzwords, thought leaders, and that sort of stuff. A lot of people that are in the advice-giving business, the how-to world, the expert industry, however you want to refer to it. And I cannot tell you how many times, like if I have people, unless I have hundreds of people at events and I just simply have so many people there that I cannot point them all out, I do my best to always acknowledge other expertise in a room of expertise. And if I have a room of very capable people and I can point it out, I want to really highlight them. And of course, I give you tremendous amounts because, it goes back to the thing. I think every one of my clients is going to be a better human being and a better business person and a better entrepreneur with any sort of exposure and consumption of Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach, not just you, but your entire company. So if it's going to make my clients better, I'm going to point it out. And so if I have a room full of people, I'll have people come to my conferences, and if there's an expert in the back of the room, even if it's a shout out from the stage, hey, we've got so-and-so in the back of the room, I just think it's the right thing to do. And I cannot tell you how many conferences I go to and people are afraid of if they have some really smart person there. And I think it's a sense of scarcity. And I think people would be well served to put their arrogance and their ego and everything down. It doesn't make you look less than when you point out really knowledgeable people. I just think it makes you more chummy. I just think it's the right thing to do. And so if there's anyone that's listening that experiences that sort of stuff and does that, you know what I'm talking about. And yeah.
Conversely, people who don't acknowledge other people's intelligence and talent immediately cut themselves off from opportunity. You come away and say, what a jerk. They had these people available and he refused to acknowledge them, and after a while they're on the scarcity side of the city.
Yes.
And the final one regarding unique ability, Joe, is promoting their unique ability to their networks. So, when all the advertising comes out for 25K every year, Dan Sullivan's picture is right up on the ad, and I push 25K in all the workshops, and I don't know how many people we brought into 25K, but every year my intention is that the number of signups for 25K is greater than the year before.
Yeah, I think there's probably about 40 people right now that earn 25K that have come directly from you.
Yeah, and so my sense is that you add another dimension to the Strategic Coach experience.
Yeah.
People say, well, which one should I do? I said, well, you do both. I do both.
Right.
Why wouldn't you do both? And everything like that. And then you're the greatest promoter for Strategic Coach that we've had in our 25 years. Hands down, if you're looking at the top 10, you don't see another one till number 9.
Right.
So, Joe, just to talk about this, because it's the theme here, you're number one in my world, and I'm number one in your world. And neither of us intends to ever give up the number one spot.
Right. And we will fight for it, and we will do stuff. And so for everyone listening, if you're having a hard time translating this into your life, which I hope you're not, if you are, what I would recommend is you do a Genius Network exercise, which is something we do in 25K, where you have a person in the middle of a piece of paper. You can pull out a piece of paper and do this. Draw a circle in the middle, and that's you. And then you draw 8 circles out surrounding you, and you list who are the 8 most important people. Now, you can do it with 4 people. We always choose 8. 8 seems to work really well. And, what I'll initially do is have everyone just brainstorm a list of 30 people that are the most influential, important in their business, although you can niche it also. You can do health, you can do relationship, you can do technology, you can do marketing. But, if you just across the board, if you just think of who are the most important people in your world, most important clients, who are they? And then underneath their name, you write in the circle, you put a circle or a line through the middle of the circle, horizontal, and you write underneath the name, what is their skill, what is their capability. And that allows you to really look at who is most important. And then you have to ask yourself, what's the value that this person has to me, to the relationship? How can I help them first? Focus on how can you help them, and then how can they help you? And if you take that approach, I just think life just works. Relationships become better. People appreciate someone more, and people appreciate you more because you're focusing on appreciating them. People give you more value because you're focusing on giving them more value. And that's how you create a strong, solid relationship. And as long as you're operating with that system and you're aligned in that way, it's going to keep growing. It's going to keep getting better unless someone falls off the horse. And even if you do, if you've built in, it would take a lot in order to really disrupt our relationship, Dan, because we just, we work on it and it's important. It's like your children, if you really love and care about your children, you tend to do loving and caring things for them. I think that that applies to all relationships.
Yeah, and I just like things that last forever, So you got to bet your future time on things that have the greatest possibility of success. Biggest bets go down on Joe Polish. Now, that's just one side of the double multiplier. So the first one is the personal with unique ability. On the other side, there's your company, and there's a lot of activities that you did to get your company where you are. But again, not all of them should go into the future. So what you want to do is create a smaller circle or just things that have the ability to grow 10 times, because there's just a lot of things in anyone's company that isn't going to grow 10 times. Now, the reason I use 10 times, and it's the reason why we have these talks, is because I find the idea of going 2 times just doesn't excite or motivate anybody, but it makes them what I call negatively clever, in the sense they say, well, I wonder how little I have to change to get to 2 times. So they don't actually do a real audit of their company to say, well, that's not going 10 times, that's not going 10 times. And sometimes the something that's not going to go 10 times is a person. Oftentimes it's a client or a customer. Oftentimes it's a vendor. It may be your physical space where you are. It was okay up until now, but now you got to think of a better space that's consistent with your level of success and where you want to go in the future. So I have 5 quick ones, and Joe, you ace out on all 5 of them. And the first one is Joe has 10 times successes, ambitions, and goals, okay? So I know one of the permanent features going forward of the Strategic Coach Company is going to be our relationship with 25K. It's going to be our relationship with Genius Network. I mean, that's just slotted in. That's a given. We start every year and we say the single most important relationship that our organization has with another relationship is the one with Joe Polish's organization.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And so a lot of people say, well, you're just leaving out a lot. Don't you want to explore? And I said, my previous life was for exploring. Now I'm just going after certainties. These are known things. I said, I've tested out the waters. I've been out there, 40 years developing the coach program. I said, I've checked a lot of things out. I've done a lot of trial and error, and I just have a really, really fine sense of what works and doesn't. And anybody who makes my unique ability better, and anyone who increases the possibilities of Strategic Coach going 10 times, they're on the list. And, there's no argument about it.
Right. The one thing that I would interpret from that, too, is that there are so many people that don't exploit, and exploit can be taken in a bad way. So let's say really leverage or take advantage of an existing relationship and go deep with it. They stay at a very shallow level and they're spreading around trying to, there's everything that's out there. Well, yeah, but do you need everything? It's kind of like your whole notion of when, I ask you about opportunities, which I always love this example, and I explain it to people that I run into all the time that have so many opportunities. And I'll say, well, Dan Sullivan has this great way of looking at opportunities where if someone's going out into the ocean and they go for a swim and they come out of the ocean and they're on the beach and someone comes up to them and says, how was your swim? You don't reply with, it was great, but I missed a lot of the ocean. I mean, that's the way you explain it, which is an awesome way at looking at there's always endless amounts of opportunity. There's a ton of stuff, but you don't need 1,000 tools in your toolbox, and you don't need 1,000 relationships in order to make it work really well. As a matter of fact, you can only manage and have so much bandwidth for deepening connections in a certain way. So you obviously want to look at something being a person, a project, a thing that you can really go deep with and you can really nurture. And that's what you're talking about here. And that's what we both do and doing it very long term. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have, just to turn inside at Strategic Coach, the company started formally, and our present form started in 1989. We have well over 100 staff, and half of them have been with us for more than 10 years. And, I talked to people about this, and they said, well, how do you keep people 10 years? And I said, well, one, they're the right people. They're sure bets. They have committed to the company. We've committed to them. So the same logic I would talk about in terms of external relationships, I use exactly the same logic for internal relationships. They've said, this is the game I want to play for the rest of my life. And I look at it both internally, so there's people inside the company, and, let's say we have 100 people in the company, but over the last 24 years, we've had probably 160 or maybe even up to 200 people who've been here, but they're not there anymore just because they weren't someone who were going to contribute to our 10 times goals. They didn't like the fact that their job was being constructed and their job was being held accountable for their contribution to 10 times. They say, I just want to work from 9 to 5. I want to come in, do the job you tell me to, and I want to go home. And I said, well, we hope you find another place, but it's not going to be here. And the people who are really the key leaders in the program are just totally geared into, one, their own unique ability within the company, but also the 10 times growth of the company. One of the things is that I'm getting my people to look more and more at 10 times capabilities. So the second one is I provide you with 10 times capabilities. You provide me with 10 times capabilities for my company.
Right.
One of my main project managers comes with me every time to 25K. Babs comes. Babs is the center of my universe, my partner in the company and my partner in life. I said I made this decision 30 years ago that this was the person, and that's it. Well, what if it fails? What if, it doesn't last? I said, well, it is going to last because we're the right people for each other.
Well, and just from what you just said there, the commitment to it is just very clear. I mean, there's no wishy-washy with you on things. And if there is wishy-washy on it, you're really quick to know how to get to, yeah, I'm going to do this, or yeah, I don't. I mean, even with your impact filter, I mean, you have really great methodologies for people that are sitting in the twilight zone and want to get out of it to figure out, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm staying with it, this is what I do, versus, I'm not going to second guess myself or second guess this relationship. And you spent your life developing that skill, and because you have paid that price, you're able to quickly teach it and give it to other people that won't have to go through many things that we're both, I think, gigantic time savers for not only each other, but also for our clients.
Yeah, and just on the subject of commitment, I'm completely digital about commitment. It's either 100% or it's zero.
Right.
I mean, it's binary. If I'm doing something, I'm 100% committed to it. If I'm in a relationship, it's 100% commitment. I don't have half commitments.
Well, it's even the thing you say about selling, too. It's either you want a yes or you want a no. It's the maybes that kill you.
Oh, yeah. I just tell my sales team, I said, look, just go down the list of everybody who's a maybe and get rid of them today, and then check out whether the ones who remain are a yes or a no. The ones who are no, you get off, and then you just have yeses. So,
right.
Just work with yeses. And this goes back to a point that you said, Joe, how do you get rid of people who aren't that? Well, you just keep expanding the way that people are like that, and you don't have any more attention and time for anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Because I did make a note of that, too. I was thinking we might have to do a cliffhanger and tell everyone, hey, I wanted to ask Dan about the getting out of the relationships, and you kind of just answered that. That's a simple way. And on the next episode, I do want to talk with you about even languaging and how you engage in conversations and that sort of stuff, because you have an art form about doing it, but the beauty is it's teachable, it's transferable, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I want to make sure I have time to go through all the criteria you're doing right now, because it's great.
Yeah, well, the other thing is the resource, the 10 times resources. So capabilities are things that you can learn how to do, But resources are just like knowledge. Knowledge is a resource, okay? Information is a resource. Capabilities are about something you can do, but resources are about something that you can know. So I'm just plugged in. I mean, every time I come back from 25K, my mind is buzzing. And when we do the big conference, the one that is in August, we've had it in New York the last 3 years. We're in Newport Beach the next time. And I have to tell you, my mind, I always take about 2.5 weeks off after your conference because my next 2 weeks at work would be worthless. So I just have to, walk the beach and read lots of novels and everything, and the stuff settles in. But you just provide so much multiplier exponential resources in your setting. And on my case, I just spend enormous amount of time in Strategic Coach on the whole subject of attitudes and then knowledge about the world. And the reason why you want to have this attitude is because this is what's happening in the world. And if you have this attitude, you're going to be propelled forward. If you have a negative attitude, you're going to be held back. So I said, I'm not telling you that you're doing this because you'll be a nice person if you don't. I'm just saying you're not going to get rewarded. You're not going to get supported. And there's nothing going to be moving you forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the last one is the opportunities of creating opportunities, 10 times opportunities. So again, going back to what you provide Strategic Coach, everybody that you introduce us to is automatically a qualified person for Strategic Coach. Not only that, they're so pre-sold by you. I mean, I just talked to someone last week, and he said, I've seen Joe 2 or 3 times a year for the last 10 years. And every time we meet, he spends 15 minutes telling me I should get into Strategic Coach. I said, this person is totally qualified. And then we had a great conversation. He's dead set on coming into my next workshop. So, I just get that all the time. Hands down, anybody who's been recommended by Joe Polish is the easiest sale in the world.
Exactly.
And I would say that, the people who come to 25K from Coach, they've been pre-sold too.
Well, I had a conversation. I don't know if it was the same person because I'm not sure. But I had a conversation with a guy who's, loaded. He's, when I say loaded, like financially has made millions of dollars. I've known him on and off. We haven't spent a ton of time together, but, we talk and we stay in touch. I've done so for over, a decade. This person was talking about coming to 25K, and I could just hear from the sense of stress and the being pulled in many different directions. I said, as crazy as this is going to sound, because you're completely capable and you've already told me you would sign up for 25K, I go, if it's an either-or decision, honestly, I think you should do both, and that's what me and Dan recommend to everyone is do 25K and do Strategic Coach. I think you could probably eliminate 90% of all the other pursuit of knowledge and self-help and books and everything by just being in both programs. And, of course, that sounds self-serving. I go, but in this particular case, if you can only do one, join Strategic Coach. So I told the person, I said, because you'll come into 25K in a much better place, and I'd rather have Strategic Coach have you for, a year or however long it takes in order to get you structured, to get you focused, to get you clear, to free up some of the chaos that in spite of your success you're having, and then you come into 25K more capable, because that's what I think both of our programs do for our clients, is they just simply set them up so that they can make the most out of it. Even what you just said about coming to 25K and taking time off, the reason a lot of people avoid coming to things is that they don't give themselves any buffer. They go into a learning environment very tired and very overwhelmed. They haven't set it up to where they can be present without having to respond to a million emails or a ton of phone calls. And then when they leave, they immediately jump right back into a race. And it's just stupid. You shouldn't run a marathon and then, not practice for it. And then as soon as you're done, try to run another marathon.
Mm-hmm.
It's pointless.
Yeah.
And so the way you set it up is why you get so much out of it.
Mm-hmm.
People have a hard time understanding that you can do a hell of a lot less stuff, read a lot less, attend a lot less things, but get 10 times more out of it if you simply just give yourself the space.
Yeah.
And that's what you're such a master at doing.
Well, the interesting thing about that is, to put it as both basic level, we never send anyone to Joe's daycare center until they're toilet trained at Strategic Coach.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I got to start using that line. It's like when someone talks to me that they're really rich, but they just think they're the smartest person. I'm like, look, you've made a lot of money. Big fucking deal. Go to Strategic Coach and get toilet trained. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So the last thing, Dan, that you talk about is you connect each other to new 10X networks.
Well, I'm just sitting here and I'm just putting a list together. You introduced me to Dean Jackson, but you introduced me to Dean Jackson's network. You introduced me to Brian Kurtz, but you introduced me to Brian Kurtz's network, and Peter Diamandis and Nick Nanton and Jeff Walker, and I can go down the list. So not only do I get introduced to really great unique abilities for all the things that we've talked about so far, but I get introduced to massive networks. And I've just decided for the next 25 years, from my own personal involvement, that's the only kind of marketing I'm going to do, is to go through pre-qualified, checked out, good housekeeping seal of approval networks by other people, because it just saves such an enormous amount of time. You come in at a level of super high credibility just because of who's introducing you and what they've already said about you before you get there, and it just multiplies your marketing effectiveness by 10 times.
Yes, exactly. And, you mentioned, and we can talk about this on the next episode because we've gone a little long on this one, but you mentioned something before we started recording, which is one of your clients in Strategic Coach, when it comes to meeting high-level people, had said, I don't know what to offer them. There's people I want to meet, but what do you offer them? And you said you went and wrote it up on the board, but then we've not even talked about it, and I'm curious to what you talked to all these people about, and I think we should bring that up on the next episode.
Yeah.
And then I'm happy to give some of the things, about what I actually think about when I want to meet somebody, and how do I open the door, how do I engage, how do I want to meet with them, and this is coming from someone that's never been super comfortable going up to strangers, or that has a lot of shy and introverted characteristics of myself. So it's not like I'm super Mr. Go out there and meet the world and completely feel comfortable. I mean, I just move through nervousness and fear because my curiosity and the rewards that I know from doing it are worth it. And I can kind of talk about that. So any final things you want to say to wrap up this episode? Because I think it's been pretty awesome.
Well, if I just go back to the basic concept of the 50-person future, is that I'm sitting where I am now looking at the next 25 years, and I'm just basically saying, now I have 100% choice about who comes into my world, and I'm going to exercise that, but the only way I can exercise it in a totally multiplier way is if I have criteria for choosing the individuals. And what we talked about during this session is my 10 criteria, 5 for unique ability and 5 for 10 times. And so because I strive for meeting the criteria, then I become immediately aware of the criteria of other individuals. So I can meet 100 people in a very short period of time. I would find the 1 or 2 individuals among those 100 people who have these qualities, and I've just saved myself a lot of bother by testing out. But if you don't have criteria in your mind, you have no judgment.
Yeah. So thank you, Dan. And this is for all of our listeners. If you didn't happen to hear the episode previous to this one, it's only 30 minutes long. Go and listen to it. And if you did listen to it, I've always loved the line, you never step in the same river twice. So after what we just talked about, you'll get a whole different perspective on listening to the previous episode because you went through this one. So share this episode with anyone you think that it would be useful for them to hear. Give us your comments at 10xtalk.com and have yourself a wonderful day. And we'll talk to you next time on 10X Talk. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Joe.